This is our living history tour. We are looking at the artists of all types. Painters, writers, musicians. We have a band over here, okay, that's showing the Civil War music created by Jackson Leland Band. And so we're going to be dealing with all aspects of art. You should pick up your program. In your program, you will have a map of the cemetery. You will be looking for the actors who are portraying some of our illustrious residents. And they will have balloons by the gravesite. When you go to the gravesite, you'll pick up an educational bookmark. We want to make sure that you register first for your bookmark about this cemetery. One of the most diverse cemeteries that reflects every group that ever came to Cleveland. And so we welcome you to this day. Okay, we want to make sure that you include your evaluation at the end of the day when we hold a raffle. And you will get prizes at the end of the day. So follow your program. I welcome you to historic Woodland Cemetery, and I hope you enjoy your learning experience.
Yes, I am Sarah M. Kimball, the wife of Samuel H. Kimball, who brought Lake Superior iron ore to Cleveland. Yes, I was an ebullient and popular society woman, and a life partner to a famed Cleveland millionaire. Yes, a devoted mother. Yes, a well-traveled widow. But I aspired to better the lives of those I saw around me, to make the world a richer place for my passing through it. Now, in the 1870s, Cleveland was seized by a passionate interest in art. And many young men went off to Europe to study with some of the finest painters of our time. They came back and formed the Art Club, a male-only society. But I worried about the women. What of young women with talent, and more importantly, young women who were in need of adequate and satisfying employment? Women whose souls were crushed by the garment industry, the backbreaking labor of the factories. I sensed and saw a real need for a place to train women in art and design. Oh, not ladylike pursuits like watercolors to hang on the walls of the drawing rooms, but learned skills to apply the ideals of beauty to everyday life. Thus was the Western Reserve School of Design for Women born. Now you, of the 21st century, you know this institution by a different name, the Cleveland Institute of Art. Yes, I founded it for women to achieve careers in design. This was an idea that Samuel and I had discussed quite a bit before his death, and with the help of many of Cleveland's leading citizens, in 1882 we wrote the Articles of Incorporation, and we were off. I hired Mrs. Harriet Watkins Kester, the first principal and painting teacher, and that first year we had the one teacher and one student, unity of a sort, and classes were held in my parlor at 1364 Euclid Avenue, which in those days was a very fine residential area. We moved to the Horace Kelly Mansion at 1001 Wilson Avenue. Do you know? Wilson Avenue, you now call East 55th Street. And we had a new head who remained at the helm for 27 years. In 1905, the Cleveland School of Art built and moved its operations to an Italianate edifice at University Circle. And although they are no longer in that building, they are still, of course, in residence at University Circle, but I get ahead of myself. in the summer of 1895, when I was 70 years old, in quick succession I was beset by a series of ailments, and I did not recover. This enchanted and enchanting necropolis is my home. Here in my eternal resting place, 87,500 individuals rest. Did you know that its pastoral sobriquet, Woodland, was taken from the poem The Pleasures of Hope by Thomas Campbell? And one stanza was written about Cleveland. Let me tell you. Come, bright improvement on the car of time, and rule the spacious world from clime to clime. Thy handmade arts shall every wild explore, trace every wave and culture every shore, on Erie's banks, where tigers steal along and the dread Indian chants a dismal song, where human fiends on midnight errands walk and bathe in brains the murderous tomahawk. There shall the flocks of tiny pasture stray, and shepherds dance at summer's opening day. Each wandering genius of the lonely glen shall start to view the glittering haunts of men, and silence watch on woodland heights around the village curfew as it tolls profound. Well, there you have it, Woodland. Come visit us often. You are always welcome.
Just to let you know a little bit about myself. I'm Carrie Williams Clifford. I was born in Chillicothe, Ohio in 1862. Was raised and educated in Columbus and married my husband William Clifford Jr. before we relocated to Cleveland. William was a lawyer and Republican member of the state legislature of Ohio. In Cleveland, my activism flourished through the founding of both the Ohio Federation of Colored Women's Clubs and the Minerva Reading Club, with the latter allowing me the opportunity to combine my passion for politics and art through poetry writing. I published 2 volumes of poetry, Race Rhymes in 1911 and The Widening Light in 1922. I also worked as a journalist, was a member of the Niagara Movement, which was the predecessor of the NAACP, and later headed the Youth Education Department of the Washington, D.C. branch of the NAACP. I died in 1934 at the age of 72.
We're tending tonight on the old campground. Give us a song to cheer our weary hearts, a song of hope and friends we love so dear. Many are the hearts that are weary tonight, wishing for more to say. Many are the hearts that are looking for the right and shade dawn of peace. Dancing tonight, dancing on the old campground. We've been tempting tonight on the old campground.
So I am Alice Wright. I died a very tragic death by suicide. I was an actress born in England. My parents were both performers. They died when I was 16 years old. At that time I decided to come to the United States with another performing group, and I have an aunt who lived in Rhode Island. Fanny was her name. She was also a performer but became ill. So I traveled in other performances and would send her back as much money as I could from every paycheck. I ended up in Cleveland with the Harrison Performing Group, and shortly after I got here, I became ill with either typhoid or scarlet fever. The illness caused me to become very despondent. And for about 5 weeks I couldn't work and send money to my aunt. I decided, because she needed money, that I would come back and start working, and I did a matinee performance which kind of wore me out. So I came back to where I was staying, which was on Michigan Street. It was a hotel that is no longer there because Tower City is now in its place and Michigan Street doesn't exist anymore. And I was performing at the Euclid Opera House, which was now what is now Corner Alley on the corner of 4th and Euclid. But I came home from that performance. It was a matinee performance. I was taking choral, which was to help me with my anxiety, and I probably took a little bit too much. I was despondent. I went up to my 4th floor room and I jumped to my death. Tragically, before I jumped, I said, "Please, Mother, forgive me." After that, I was obviously very young. I was 19 and not well known, but my many benefactors or entrepreneurs and performers in the city of Cleveland donated my gravesite, which is here in Woodland Cemetery. They donated the flowers. I'm buried in a rosewood coffin, which was not something that a working girl my age would normally have been buried in. And my obituary was put in many different newspapers throughout the United States, and I was known for being chaste and pure and having good motives, and my reputation was very good when I passed away.
In 1825, I was born in Gera, Germany, which of course at that time was not Germany. It was the Principality of Saxony. But at that time, I was coming from a relatively prosperous family, from the German aristocracy, some say. And in my 30s, I decided Germany was suffering a lot of political unrest, especially after the 1848 revolutions. And so I decided to follow many and go to the United States, attempting some sort of economic security for me and my family. However, I arrived in 1860 on the eve of the Civil War.
Bad timing.
So from political turmoil to political turmoil, I lost everything. I had to start over, and I found my field. I was trained in the art world. I found my field doing exactly what's depicted on those bookmarks. I retouched photographs. Rather, touched them for the first time, I should say. I inked them and then watercolored them to recreate somewhat of the scene and somewhat of the emotions of that scene with different hues, different colors. It's a painstaking process. Have any of you ladies been photographed? Have you ever been photographed before?
Yes.
Been photographed?
Yes, I have.
You can understand that you want to maintain that moment in time. You want to capture that. And this was our way of doing it since the 19th century. You also notice that there's 2 photographs side by side.
Yes.
That's called a stereooptic viewer. So you look at one side and then the other through what's called a stereopticon, developed by Oliver Wendell Holmes. It's really just a pair of binoculars with a piece of wood in the middle. You can somewhat try to recreate it by putting your nose very close to the center of the line, but I would not encourage it, particularly on the reproductions on the little marks there. But what it does is it, in fact, takes the 2 images, your eyes focus on one and the other, fuses them together. It creates, in some ways, 3 dimensions. So the picture really stands out against the background. I got my special doing that under a gentleman by the name of William Case North, who took me under his wing, an immigrant like myself. I would not be where I am without that benefactor. My son as well, as he'll tell you. So, with that field, I was able to send my 3 children and my wife, Aileen, here with me. And by the 1870s, we were doing so well. My son Arthur and I, we started our own studio. And our studio was chosen, out of all in the Cleveland area, we were chosen by September 24th and 25th of 1881. We were chosen to capture President Garfield, may he rest in peace, President Garfield's memorial service here in Cleveland. 30 of our photographs are part of that history.
Oh, how nice.
So I went from Germany to the United States to success, and when my son Arthur in 1898 was going off to the Spanish-American War, I went off to peace, and here I lay. In my 70s, I got to see my family over here successfully thriving. What more can you ask for?
Yeah.
Arthur?
Thank you, Father. My name is Arthur Lievisch, and I was born on September 10th, 1854 in Germany. But as my father said, Germany during that time was very, very tumultuous and filled with political unrest. So in 1863, I immigrated to America with my mother and my siblings to join my father, who had come here several years earlier. While attending school as a young man in Cleveland, I began to develop a particular talent for painting and drawing, taking after my father. It runs in the family. But the Cleveland of 150 years ago was a different world, probably more different than any of you can remember, especially if you were an immigrant. Survival was an actual issue. You could get out of the way or you could get run down. That was the life of the immigrant. If you were going to survive, hard work and perseverance was the only way to do it. I can remember a lot of our friends and relatives who had come to the U.S. with us. They had tried to start businesses of their own, but many ended up failing because of the harsh economic times following the Civil War. I was determined that that was not going to happen to me. So I was very fortunate. I was able to study under some of the most renowned photographers of the time all over the world. That enabled me to learn everything I could about the art of photography. And in the 1870s, I went to work for William North, a great benefactor to both my father and myself, doing photographic enhancements using paints, the process that he described to you. I, however, had different dreams for myself than working for someone else for the rest of my life. Also the work wasn't that fulfilling. I was an artist. I wanted to create. So several years after that, I went into business with my father, and we were very, very blessed and very, very fortunate at the time. Our business continued to expand, and we opened up our main hub called the Liebich Photographic Art Gallery. One of the things I'm most proud of, aside from the legacy of photographs that we left behind, is the connections that we were able to build here in the German community. A lot of the immigrants, we really stuck together and formed our own little independent groups, and I was able to serve as a leader or an organizer on many of those committees before my untimely death at the age of 51 in 1905 from complications from heart disease. Unfortunately, I leave behind no children. I was able to work right up until the end, but health reasons prevented me from having any children. And then I passed away, unfortunately, in 1905. But as I said, we left behind quite a big legacy of work that I'm very, very proud of.
Where can we see? Oh, we had the same thought. Where can we see this?
Well, I understand with this current technology,
Internet?
you can
There's
look on the
internet?
Internet. Yes, that's what they call it.
Internet.
Internet. It's a
Googling?
huge net
Does
that
this
is
sound
tiny.
familiar to you?
Google it now.
Googling.
Yes,
Type in our
either of
name.
our names, the Liebisch. You can see many stereo optic photographs like that, particularly of the Garfield Memorial, and we also have several of the Port of Cleveland.
Yes.
Back in, you can see back how it looks
Wonderful.
back
Well,
We
we
will
will
check
so much.
you
then. So
out.
although
Thank
we
you.
are gone, our photographs live on.
Live on.
Right. Wonderful.
Thank you.
Guten Tag.
Thank you.
Hello.
Hello.
Thank you for stopping by.
Okay.
I am E.B. Knock.
E.B. Knock.
And, was a famous photographer here in Cleveland. And I had studios at 148 and 150 Ontario Street. The street's still there, but the studio is long gone. And I was really an accomplished photographer. But I wasn't always a photographer. I was a cook on a riverboat and a musician. And in the evenings I would play the guitar with the passengers. And there was a photographer on the boat, and he said, "I'll teach you photography if you teach me how to play the guitar." That turned out to be swell for me. When the Civil War came along, I was asked by the Army to be a cartographer and photographer. I did that for 3 years, and then I worked for the United States government doing the same thing, and eventually moved to Cleveland. My father was born in England and brought us here in 1833. He was an inventor of a steel process called puddling, And after many failures, he finally found a place in Pittsburgh that would build a furnace that would do his puddling technique, and it was a big success. And eventually we moved to Youngstown, Ohio, where he died. And then we came to Cleveland. I was very successful. I took pictures of famous Clevelanders, and, worked for the City Hall, and I was the only photographer that took pictures of criminals. So I started the Rogues Gallery for the police department. In those days we took just about 40 pictures a year. Maybe there were less criminals. I also had built a 3-foot replica of a steamboat, the kind I used to ride on. It was built by a retired sea captain, and there was a fountain at Public Square, and I would have the boat circle all around this fountain in this pond every day. Well, people came for miles around to see it, and wisely I put my name on the side. It was good advertising for my business. It really helped. And every morning the man who raised the flag at Public Square would wind up that boat, and around it would go. And it lasted a long time, from about 1875 to 1910. I really wish I knew what happened to that boat. Well, everything went swell until about 1892, when at 2 in the morning my studio caught fire and was almost completely destroyed. Most of my equipment was destroyed. Well, it wasn't so good for me because I really didn't know how to do any other work. So soon me and my wife and 11 children were facing poverty. In my last years I lived with my daughter Dora, who died in 1910 at the age of 77.
My name is Jackson Leland. I was born in 1818 in Williston, Massachusetts, and my effort in the war was to provide music and to motivate people going to war, coming back from war, using music. I had an interesting life, had married twice. I had 3 sons by my first marriage and 3 daughters with my second marriage. And eventually we all ended up in Cleveland, and they're all buried here somewhere. The stones have been lost for the majority of them. But I played bandstands and had a bandwagon to just kind of make people happier. One other part of the cemetery, you'll meet my friend Loring Ballou, who was the dance master for Cleveland, and I was the music master. I taught all the music people in Cleveland in my career. Eventually, in 1878, I passed away from apoplexy, or if you're too young and you don't remember that, is having a stroke. I appreciate you coming today. Thank you.
And I passed on in 1896, but I was born April Fool's Day, 1813. So I think that was an omen to become some sort of entrepreneur in entertainment industry. So, but I teamed up with Spencer Leland. He was a band director, and I did the dancing. I taught dance. We had cotillions, $1 a piece, refreshments extra.
Ooh,
What a bargain today, right?
$1 a piece.
Yes, yeah. This is tells me it tells you a little bit about me and my wife,
Oh,
children, and
thank
everything.
you. This is interesting.
Unfortunately, I don't even have a picture. They didn't even put a picture of me. No gravestone, no picture. So I'm kind of I'm anonymous, but I wasn't in the day. I was a very prominent citizen. Back when I came to Cleveland in 1837.
Okay. Well, this is interesting. I'm enjoying this.
In fact, I retired and then I came back. I just couldn't retire. And we had a parade on July of 1896, and I was in the parade, and my friend Leland, he directed a band, I directed the dance. We had students as part of the parade. And then a couple months later, I fell ill and got appendicitis and passed on 2 weeks later. But I was very healthy after the end, 83 years old.
Yeah, I have to retire.
And then my wife died 2 years after that. But she was 2 years my junior too, so we died at the same age.
That's good. This is good.
But I will have to talk to the family about why they didn't give me a stone. Me or her.
Something. Yeah.
Ladies, I enjoyed talking to you, and have a great afternoon.
Oh, you too. You have a great one. Thank you.
I was born in 1920 on the campus of Tuskegee Institute, which is now Tuskegee University. Then my parents were James and Bessie Gale, and James was the athletic director at Tuskegee, and very good friends with George Washington Carver while he was doing his research. Shortly thereafter, the family relocated to Cleveland, Ohio, and at the age of 19, when my father passed away, I had to take care of my mother and 4 younger sisters. So I enrolled in the Navy, and I was in the Navy band playing saxophone for 2 years until I was honorably discharged in 1945. And in the 1950s, I got the interest in photography while I was working nights at the Cleveland Fisher Body Plant. And during the days, I was working for a photographic company called Hastings and Willinger Processing Film, and then I became a photographer. Not shortly thereafter, but after a couple of years, I was fired by them, fortunately, and I'll tell you why. I opened up my own studio, and I started freelancing for magazines like Ebony and Jet, and the Cleveland Call-and-Post, and the Pittsburgh Courier. And after Carl Stokes was elected in the first black mayor of a major city, and the Cleveland Press hired their first black photographer, I went to the Cleveland Plain Dealer and I said, when are you going to put a little color on your staff? And they hired me in 1967. I worked there till my retirement in 1990. I married my wife, Juanita, who is also buried here, as are my parents, Bessie and James, over in another corner. And on many of our dates, she would go along with me as my assistant, and she called me cheap, but I called it smart. In 1965, we had a daughter named Gina, who became a photographer as well. Yep.
Is she still living, or?
That's me.
Oh, okay, I got it.
I am Gina.
Jarvis Hanks.
Grandparents or mother? Grandparents.
No. I just lived down the street there between 105th and 107th. See, I have a birthday coming up in 10 days, September 24th. I'll be, let's see, I was born in 1799. This is 1850. I'll be 51 years old. So my wife and I have 10 children, from anywhere from 25 down to 10. So you might have read about me recently in the paper. I was recently honored with the privilege of being the director of the Cleveland Mendelssohn Society Orchestra. It's an opera house downtown. And we have 25 musicians to support the opera house there. Always been a big supporter of music. I actually started on the drums as a drummer boy in the War of 1812, and was able to make it through there peacefully, but my interest in being a soldier waned after witnessing some of the deaths in the War of 1812 up there. And it's the Battle of Chippewa near Niagara Falls. Beautiful area, but when there's a war going on and people dying right next to you, it's a different story. So, I grew up in Paulet, Vermont, and with the war, and then I was only 13 years old, and then when it was over, I was like 15 years old, moved back with my parents, and then we came down to the southern Ohio area, and when I was about 18, 19, I went off to be an itinerant painter. I did portraits. I like the portraiture. I mean, those come by commissions, usually from wealthier people, so I would supplement my income doing house painting, decorative painting, even sign painting. And being an itinerant painter, going through southern Ohio, there's always shops that need a sign painted on their establishment to draw people in. And also I started with the drums, but being in the service, when the time is down, there were other musicians, so we would share each other's interest in instruments, and so became acquainted with a number of instruments. I wrote a book on the violin, and I always support the music in the public schools because as I state there on the bookmark, very seldom do you see someone cultivated in the arts that's headed for the gallows or a penitentiary. I think music and art too, it brings people together. You know, different types of music. You might like one type of music or instrument, I have another, so it makes me interested in learning about others. So it relaxes us. Portraiture painting itself too is the human form is so many complexities, and there's so much to capture in a human face. You know, someone might have be a very outgoing person, or their children might be a certain way, and they want to capture that essence in them. And fortunately for me, I was able to do that in a short amount of time, since people don't want to sit for any more than an hour at a time for painting.
Hey, I am Mary Ellen Bradford, but Mary Bradford is what I'm more known as. I was one of 6 children born to Irene and Joel Scranton, who are actually buried right here next to me. However, sadly, I'm the only one that made it to adulthood, which is quite common back then. There. Okay. At the age of 25 in 1858, I married William Bradford, my only husband. We had one son named William who died as an infant. However, we adopted my cousin's little girl, Ella, in 1866. We had raised her for several years after my cousin's wife had abandoned them, and we finally made it official and made her ours in 1866. I did a lot of work with Trinity Cathedral, as well as helping to start a children's home on Prospect Avenue. What I'm most known for, and one of the things that I've accomplished, would be I was one of the primary benefactors to the Cleveland School of the Arts, which would later become Cleveland Institute of Art. I served as their second president from 1885 until 1904. And later, posthumously, I was actually named a trustee of the Cleveland Institute of Art after the name change. I died in 1918 of exhaustion at the age of 85.
Wow. Hello, my name is Johann Heinrich Beck, sometimes called John Henry Beck here in this country. My parents were actually from Germany, and they're immigrants, and I was born here in Cleveland and spent most of my life in Cleveland. I am a composer and a conductor and a violinist. I got a scholarship and a passport to go over back to my homeland of Germany to study at a place called the City of Leipzig Gewandhaus Orchestra, which is very much like your Severance Hall is here. It's a large concert hall with a music school inside of it. And I learned composition, and I studied violin, and I was there for 3 years, and came back to Cleveland and decided to form my own small ensemble so I could play some of the music that I had heard there that I had never heard here. In that. So I started with a string quartet named after the composer Schubert, but then I decided I needed to get more famous, so I named it after myself. So it was called the Beck Quartet. And then from that we grew into a smaller ensemble, and that we formed in 1908, and we called ourselves very grandly the Cleveland Symphony Orchestra. Well, in 1918, lo and behold, many of those same people who were involved in that, not myself, but many of the same people, went on to form what is now known today as the Cleveland Orchestra, and started back in 1918. I actually went back to teaching. I lived very close here. I actually lived on East 55th Street, what is now East 55th, and I had a studio for students who came to me, and that was near, I don't know if you know where this is, but it's near East 55th and Broadway. It's called the Broadway School of Music now, I believe. It was in that area. It wasn't that exact building, but it was in that area. And I taught there, and I also was able to get some of my pieces played both by the newly formed Cleveland Orchestra, and because I conducted some places like in Detroit and Columbus and in actually Boston, I got to bring some of my pieces along there with me and have them play them. But unfortunately, I don't have a headstone. We think that it's possible that I may be resting underneath that mound of earth right there, but we're not sure. This is my father's. These are German words for father and mother, Vater and Mutter. So those are my father and mother. The rest of the Becks that you see are either uncles, relatives of my parents. My brother is not here, but Charles and Sarah were aunts and things like that. Well, Sarah was actually by marriage, but Charles was a brother of my father. And it goes and continues over to the one like over here named Caroline, and I don't know her. Nobody quite knows who she was. I think that she must have come late, or perhaps she came over after I had passed, because I don't know her. And then this particular stone here, we thought, oh, well, maybe that's my stone, but it's got the wrong dates on it. So we don't think it is because it's not my birth dates and death dates and stuff. So we're thinking that this may be something because this was a big archway at one time. Came up. I don't think it was a grandiose stone, but I think that this.
Like some of these here.
Right, exactly. I think, well, you see these little numbers that are around and stuff, and I think those were actually in that time the way to mark certain sections. Like if you were part of the Beck family, you would be here, or if you were part of the other families that are buried here, the Starks, they're here, and things like that. And sometimes they were divided by ethnic backgrounds or ancestral backgrounds, but I don't know if you might know this, but except for the Erie Street Cemetery, which is downtown and older than this, this actually was the first multi-racial cemetery,
Indians, Black,
which is wonderful, and it's not like relegated to some place. They're just all commingled and things like that, and particularly inside the Civil War areas. Have you seen that already? Yes. It's really quite impressive that there are that many things. And I understand here that next year is since it's an anniversary of the end of the Civil War in '65, it's what would that be in 2015? I have no head for numbers, only notes, only music notes. But they're going to do a lot of celebrations of particularly the fighting people who are interred here and things, because apparently the foundation that it now has is responsible for this cemetery has got a lot more resources in terms of historical backgrounds and what's being used and things. So I'm very happy about that. I am very sorry that I didn't live a little bit longer. I was only 67 when I passed, but I had a good life. I was known in my own circles, a small circle of musicians, but my work was pretty well known and respected, and as I said, some of it was even played by the Cleveland Orchestra. But I liked all kinds of music, and I lived until 1924, so I was there at the beginning of the jazz age, so I got my own compositions started to get a little bit of that kind of influence. And as a matter of fact, I went downtown on the day of my death. I went to a concert by Paul Whiteman, whose orchestra was the first performance of George Gershwin's Rhapsody in Blue piece that he made. And so, although Gershwin wasn't playing at the time, they played Rhapsody in Blue, which I dearly wanted to hear, and also some other jazz-influenced compositions. And I went home, and I was taken by a friend into one of those Mr. Ford's new-fangled horseless carriage inventions, and we were driving up 55th Street, and I passed, actually, in the car. They thought I had just fallen asleep, but unfortunately, when we came to my house and my wife came out to greet me, I had passed in 1924. But I had passed after hearing a great concert, so that was quite wonderful. I was very happy to be surrounded by music all my life. My dear wife, Mary, who was from Tiffin, Ohio, went back to Tiffin afterwards, so she is not here either. Some think that perhaps I might have been sent down there to be with her, but no one quite knows. The only other good thing about my legacy here is the fact that the Cleveland Public Library here has collected some of my original compositions in my own hand and some of the love letters between my wife and myself and some other diaries and things, and they have it in their special collections. And also somebody had commissioned a bust, a sculpture of me from like the waist up and things, that is right at the entrance door to the Fine Arts Department on the 3rd floor of the library. So we're in the hopes that somebody will reconstruct some of the music they have from my notes and be able to actually have it performed at an institute like you have now, the Cleveland Institute, or the Music School Settlement, or even the Broadway School. I mean, there's such a rich legacy of music here. I'm very happy to become a part of it.
I'm Charles Dickinson. I was born in 1831 in Pennsylvania, of a family from up east. My father, Charles, and my mother, Ellen. Father was a rather prominent inventor. He holds the U.S. patent for the steam centrifugal gun, which was held to be a novel and valuable invention. And as a matter of fact, it was in Maryland at the outbreak of the hostilities between the North and South, and the family was delighted when it was rescued and moved north to keep it out of the hands of one Ross Winans, who was a prominent and wealthy Marylander who had Southern sympathies, and we were afraid that he'd turn this weapon to the benefit of the Confederacy. So we were delighted when it was rescued and moved north. But enough about them. Let's talk about me. I was a musician. Yes, yes. As a matter of fact, you've met my friend Leland.
Yes,
I
yes.
played in his band.
Oh, okay. That's the connection. Okay, we got it. Okay.
I played a rather mean cornet, as a matter of fact. We had a great time, but you'll probably hear more of that later, too. At any rate, was a musician and an actor and a music teacher, because the former two didn't necessarily pay the bills, but it was with that cornet and with Leland's band that found me at one point in New Orleans. And we were playing in a pit band for a stage presentation, and it was there that I met the beautiful Harriet Wood, who within months agreed to become my wife. The happiest day of my life, but I must have been something of a rogue, because it was only months later. But at any rate, she's an intelligent and talented woman, of which you'll hear more from her in a moment. But I was honored that she took my hand, and even more so that she agreed to leave New Orleans and move north with me to live near my family. And we did that. As a matter of fact, we lived with my parents until the children started to arrive, and at that point moved out on our own. Now, when the hostilities broke out north and south, I enlisted in the 41st Ohio Infantry, and my cornet and I played in the regimental band. It was through the course of the war, and then we found ourselves after Shiloh. I and many members of my unit were stricken with dysentery. The harsh living conditions, the poor sanitary situation, the difficult dietary issues, and we were a mess. I lost 50 pounds. I was discharged from the service of the Union and sent home. When I returned, it was felt that at 120 pounds, very little energy, very little strength, that my prospects were very slim. I was put in the care of my parents. My wife, Harriet, was working. She'll tell you that story in a moment. But I lasted a very short time and ended up dying in 1862, in December. As a matter of fact, Harriet left a note that I carry to this day. He died a few minutes after midnight, and he was buried in late afternoon of the same day. I was not present when he died, as he died very suddenly, but I was in Cleveland at the time, and I attended his funeral. So she was here when they laid me there. Unfortunately, our children did not survive me by much, and our younger, Ida, died at age of only 9 from the typhoid. She was living on Harper Avenue here in Cleveland with my sister, Mary Ellen Dickinson Ferris. And having been raised a Ferris, she was buried a Ferris in the Ferris plot up the hill at Lakeview Cemetery. A minor bookkeeping error. Her last name there is listed as Ferris, even though it was Dickinson. But that's of no major import because there is no marker on her grave. My son Charlie predeceased her. Come, son, and tell your story.
Well, hello, my name is Charles L. Dickinson.
Ignore the B,
Get
son.
off me. Charles L. Dickinson. My mom calls me Charlie, and I was born March 9th, 1858, and my mom was an actress, and my dad was a musician, and we did have some very, very interesting times. So I was born in Cleveland, you guys, and and then we had to move to Michigan, and where my mom opened an ice cream parlor, which was really, really fun, and I ate there basically almost every day. And well, then we had to move back to Cleveland because of the Civil War, and my dad did join the Army, and he came back and he died. And then I was living with my grandma because my mom was at the theater and she was doing all the acting stuff. And well,
where did you move?
My grandma died, so I moved over with my aunt in Vermont, and basically by the time I got there, I got really sick. My lungs got sick. I had a really high fever, and I couldn't breathe, and I died of diphtheria. And well, that's the end of my story.
And you were brought back
And
here.
I was brought back here.
Next to your dad.
Next to my dad.
All right. Thank you, Charlie.
I have a lamb right here because I was...
Oh, move please.
Because I died when I was only 6 years old. So,
okay.
I was buried next to my dad.
Yes.
So, now let's go on to my mom's story.
I'm going to tell you guys what really happened. How about that?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm Pauline Cushman. Pauline Cushman? What if I said Miss Major Cushman?
The
spy.
spy.
The spy
Yeah.
and scout of the Cumberlands. There's somebody who knows what's going on. Finally, someone who knows what's going on. Anyway, I was born, don't feel bad because you've never heard of me. I was born Harriet Wood. No one's ever heard of her either. Okay? That was part of the problem. I was born in New York, regardless of what he tells you or anything else that you read about me. But I was told I was born in New York, and that's the story I'm sticking with. We moved around, my family, but I wanted to be an actress. So when I was 15 years old, there was nothing more that I wanted to do than be on the stage. I went to New York City, and I fashioned myself after one of the most prominent actresses of the day, Charlotte Cushman. She was extremely famous. She was known for leading roles as both men and women. She played Romeo to her sister's Juliet. So I thought if I changed my name to Cushman, people would think that I was related to her, or at least as talented as she, and they would hire me. And it worked. I got a job with a company performing in New Orleans, and that's where I met the charming and distinguished Charles Dickinson. I don't know if any of you ladies have ever fallen for a musician, but it can be fabulous as well as tumultuous. So after the children were born, there was a time where we split. I went to Michigan, Grand Rapids. My brother lived there. I opened up the ice cream parlor that Charlie told you about. Charles eventually joined us. And we both had opportunity to perform. We did a lot of touring in Michigan. We did a lot of touring in Wisconsin. But let me just tell you this one. I performed as La Grande Cushman. I appeared in male clothing. I did a whole evening's review of stories and song to rave reviews. We toured all over Wisconsin. It was fabulous. And once the war hit and there wasn't a lot of just a lot of call for or money for theatrical productions or for ice cream parlors, so I went back to Cleveland. Come here, sweetie. I went back to Cleveland, and that's when you're interrupting. That's when Charles joined the Army. Now I'll tell you what really happened with Charles in the Army. Yes, you might want to look away, sir. It's true that he got dysentery. It's true that half of Leland's band got dysentery, and they were discharged. However, how long did it take you to get back from Shiloh to Cleveland? He had a little side trip in Cincinnati. Now, a man with dysentery should not be drinking, carousing, any of that thing. God only knows what all you did, but he spent his entire military pension and came home not only 50 pounds lighter, but with no money. What was
lighter in his pocket?
Yeah, absolutely. What was I supposed to do? I had to go to work. I had to go back to work to raise my kids, to feed them. He went to live with his mother, and he eventually died there. And as sad as it was, I had to do what I had to do. His sister badmouthed me, said I was a bad mother, said I abandoned my children, but I mean, come on, we know that isn't true. I love them. I love them very, very much, but I had to make a living. Once Charlie passed, which was heartbreaking to me, and after his sister's death, I had the stage, I had the theater. I was touring in Louisville, and I was approached by Confederate soldiers who paid me $300 to dress as a man and make a toast to the Confederate President, Jefferson Davis, that evening during a production. I did that. Chaos ensued. I was arrested. I was brought before the Grand Marshal of the Union Army, who encouraged me to continue. He told me to continue performing as this character, and I ingratiated myself in the Confederate Army and brought back information. That's where I got the name the Spy and the Scout of the Cumberlands. So I was actually captured, sentenced to hang, but the Union was victorious at Shelbyville, and I was rescued. And after that, I could perform as a lecturer. I traveled all over, toured everywhere, just talking about my experience as a spy in the military, which was a very unique experience for a woman at that time. So I had a few careers. I ran hotels, I ran saloons, I had a couple husbands. I wound up in San Francisco living on a widow's pension, and let's just say I didn't need to buy a drink because I could live on my stories for the rest of my days. Unfortunately, that's not exactly good for you, as Charles found out. And there was the laudanum and the opium and other things that eventually led to my demise. I didn't wake up one morning in 1893. I was 60 years old. I was buried with military honors in a military cemetery, which later closed. And upon that closing, they buried me in the Presidio. Now, I'm not buried under the name Pauline Cushman. I'm not buried under the name Harriet Wood. All it says on my gravestone is Union Spy.
Everyone who's here for the raffle, have you guys filled out with the form? It's a little form for a prize with locket craze. Okay, we're going to do a drawing for that right now. You want to have someone pull?
We're going to have somebody pull. Somebody with little hands.
No, we're going to do that afterwards.
We got
okay.
6 pulls, so you can't look inside, but reach inside and pull a
you
name. Go ahead and give it to Michelle and have her announce the winner. This is for a bobblehead.
It's a bobblehead?
Yep, we'll start with a bobblehead.
It's a bobble body.
It's a body.
This is a bobblehead.
A bottle bobby.
Josie Clark. There you go, Josie.
Get a bobblehead. Okay, another one.
Bobble your head. Oh, you're not supposed to see
I like
us.
this little kid. Mr. Thomas Smith. Is he still here?
Yep.
He's back over there. He's with the yellow balloon. You get a bobblehead.
That matches his hat.
All right, one more.
Oh, that's for this other one. That's for this one here.
Trinity Johnson.
What is that for?
A bobblehead.
She gets a bobblehead too.
Okay, now we're going to change pullers. You want to come pull? This is for the teal toss.
I guess I'm here for a moment.
You're here for a bobblehead.
Yay!
There you go. Thank you very much.
Callie. Callie Johnson.
Yeah.
Nope.
No.
You get to keep warm.
We need it on a day like today. This is actually one of the coolest days we've added for an
Just
event.
for another one like this here?
Yeah.
Okay, announce it, so this is please.
Sarah Wakala.
Hey!
Yay!
I love how everybody wrote really neat on this and I can read.
Okay, and the big final prize for the $50 gift certificate.
Final prize.
She's going to pull her own name.
What am I going to do?
She's going to pull her own name. That's what
Oh. Okay.
Mary Williams.
Hey!
For the
Right.
$50 gift prize.
Thank you. Thank you.
You all could thank for Marie and the locket craze.
Gotta pay tax on that now.
And if anybody's interested, please visit her and her table. It's a really neat gift, and especially with the holidays coming up. And it's a cool idea. Okay, now we're going to do the regular raffle price. So, who wants to come and draw a ticket?
Better shake that up real good.
Yeah, we need to.
What a big shot.
We have another little kid around here.
We'll just have him.
This little Charlie.
Again?
Yeah.
You want to draw one? Okay, draw
Don't
one.
look in there. Don't look in there.
He's got this down well. Have you done this before? Yeah. Okay.
I don't know. Yes, maybe no, I don't know.
He's a newcomer.
It looks like a Kiwi or Kevin Henderson.
Hey.
Okay.
Charge today.
Yeah, the bags are for the children.
Anything over here?
Wait, anything over there?
These are
Fair warning about the chocolates, they contain bourbon.
Oh, okay. Just
And should be adults only. And they do need to share whoever gets them. Because I can't see them in a 9-count box.
Let's see.
You want to draw one, Dan?
Me draw one?
Soccer or hockey?
Oh, I gotta draw one, okay.
Which one?
Nephew will like this.
The monsters?
That's what,
Isn't it soccer or hockey?
no, that's hockey.
Okay.
Dan, you just dropped one on the floor.
Pardon me, folks.
That wouldn't be fair.
That way ain't fair.
Oh, the Nautica? You took the Nautica Queen instead.
Dan, you keep dropping them out.
I'm sorry.
God,
All right.
these
I'm
poor people.
All right. You mix up and then
Okay, since you better not be dropping it on the floor.
Okay.
How did I get stuck doing this? Then you grab two. Here, now pick one.
That one.
That's one, finally.
Yay.
Oh, God. It's Alonzo.
Yay! I'm alive.
You owe me, man.
Anything?
Do I need identification?
Oh yeah, three types of identification now.
All right.
The autograph picture from the Browns is of Phil Taylor, in case anybody was interested.
Browns won!
Did they really?
Thank you.
Okay. Who else wants to? Somebody else come up and draw. We're gonna do one by one. Come on, girl.
Who's here? Oh, yeah. First home opening. That's what made his day I was talking about.
Is it Carlos? Is the name? Okay, the last four is like 5495, the phone number?
Oh, the ticket number.
Oh, the ticket number, I'm sorry. Duh. 561495. Duh. I told you, I don't like doing things like this. I leave it to everybody else.
Our resident ghost.
Who's got 495?
Again.
They must have left.
Again. Speed it up.
Trying twice.
I want to go home and watch the Browns.
The recap? Okay, nobody here with 495. Okay, we're gonna do it again. You wanna come back up and do it again? Unbury yourself in the balloon.
Close your eyes.
Okay.
And the winner is...
No, turn around.
Gracie. She pulls her own. This is fair.
I didn't know.
Yeah, because there's his ones at the end if you want.
Fix.
Or you can...
So I left my tickets in the car. It may or may not be in my hand. If the name on the back says not in my hand.
No. Why'd you leave your tickets in the car?
My grandma made me go in the car.
Gracie.
Come on, these
You
guys
can
want
pick.
some.
Okay. You want to pick one, Missy? Oh no, not you again. Alonzo.
Yes!
Dinner too. Yes! Yes! You can always redonate.
I'm beginning to like you, Michelle.
Well, thank God we only gave out 3. Since he's got 2, he's only got one more chance.
Ooh.
See, I get a banana.
Hey, that's good eating.
Ooh, yes. Thank you.
Who else? Someone else want to pick out of the basket? Annette. Everybody always has fun doing this. Marie.
That's good. Yeah.
She's done a good job.
Yay.
Is it Mary Ripe? Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, you gotta try that Kentucky bourbon chocolate.
5% alcohol.
It is very good. Like I said, don't try to feed it to some kids.
Okay.
Oh no, Gracie again. She's gonna have a lot of fun days.
She won again?
Yeah.
No drive home.
Why not?
She's with you.
Who took that last one?
Anisha?
Oh.
Anisha?
Who took that last box?
Last box of what? All the chocolates gone?
Oh, no.
Ladies in gray.
Come up
One
and
of the
drive
bags.
home.
Huh? Take one of the bags.
Yep.
Shake that thing up.
Kim Greer.
Take your happy ball.
I'm telling you, you need to share.
I'm sharing. We're sharing.
How do you guys like them?
They're good.
I'm telling you, it's at a company out of Kentucky, Louisville, Kentucky. And they're online. The lady will pack. It's well worth it. Megan Sullivan.
After
The one that leaves the tickets in the car. Sarah Rabadia.
Ooh. Do I get a pick?
You can pick whatever one you want. Anisha. She's going to have a lot of fun things. Yeah.
Hey, we have to come over to your house now.
Paul. Ferroni.
Hey. Hooray.
No, that's actually an autograph picture of Phil Taylor.
This one you need.
I wish there were bronze tickets.
This is good. Red menu.
Okay, we can just go with the next one.
Okay.
What was it, Sean went Gray? Shirley, yes. No, I'm not.
What did you hit, the bourbon part?
Yeah, whatever 538 is. That's one. That's one of them. You would have had three of them. Did you get the... Ann Richardson? Okay. It's like, can you walk after eating some of those? Hey, I only can eat like one at a time. Bill Piker? Picor. Well, it's a man's writing. What do you want?
Yeah, he's got bad writing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So that I don't know where they are. I mean, you know.
Oh, we got till next year. Okay, good.
Yeah, I tried to put the expiration dates on there so you at least have an idea.
If you have nobody to go with, I'll go with you.
Okay.
Aha.
We got 3 adults left and one.
Okay.
I think one kid.
This is impossible. Alonzo. Out of 3 tickets. Oh, dear Lord.
Called again.
You can always redonate, you know that.
Can I take you?
Yes, anytime.
Wow. What's the whole thing?
That's for children. Yeah, and we know how you like children's gifts. That's a Phil Taylor autograph.
Okay.
On the brown.
All right, Phil Taylor, I don't feel. Okay, cool.
Trinity Johnson. Yeah, the bag's got the stuff in there for kids if you want to do that, or you can do.
That's
Is it-
enough. She's got to get kids with it.
No, she doesn't have to do kids. No,
Real.
she's not required to.
And this is placemats and a dinner table set, and you got that at the exhibit down at Collinsville.
Got one child and
Okay. Bill Cole.
Hey. I guess I have to open my father. All right.
And there's just one.
No charge for that.
What else is left up there? Oh, that actually went with.
The other one? Okay.
Yeah,
I'll
that
take
went
it
with
too.
the napkins. Bill Pico. I know, it's a children's one.
I got grandchildren.
That works.
Okay. Thanks, everybody.
Well, thank you all for attending. We appreciate it. And I hope you'll be back here again. We've got really events planned for next year, so make sure that you're signed up or contact us to be on the mailing list. And again, we thank you all for being here. I hope you had a good time.